The bigotry of war. Officially, war is the violence one state does another, and war becomes that. But war is first a conflict within a society. It's a conflict over the fact of that violence. Most acutely, war is a conflict between the few persons who can do military combat, who are predominantly young and male, among other things, and the more numerous and powerful men and women who would use them. To war's users, young men's users, war has a supreme potential value. To young men themselves, war has a supreme potential cost. The economics of war tend toward the economics of slavery, and the abiding interest of other citizens is to enslave young men for war. Slavery is famously problematic to define, but its common purpose is easily stated: to get labor, especially labor of an otherwise unobtainable kind, price, or amount. Slavery has a second, disused purpose: to harm its subjects. Slavery is a human rights violation, for those who believe in human rights, and the slavery done young men for war is 3 human rights violations. It is authoritarianism, it is anti-minority law, it is murder. Each of these is a public act and requires a public justification. In a democratic society, this would normally be a democratic justification. But there are no democratic justifications for human rights violations. There are only non-democratic, pseudo-democratic, and unfactual justifications. Citizenship is a supposed non-legal entity or force that creates obligations for people. It is not the legal standing of the same name. Citizenship savors of officialness and moralness and uprightness, and officials and moralists and uprightnesses favor it for those connotations which mimic their presumptions of authority. About citizenship, one thing could be said for sure. Citizenship would be a condition of the citizens. It would not be the moral peculiarity of a disfavored few. The word caste is alien to how Americans talk, but the idea that it's caste dominates how they think about young men and war. Caste is bias, like racism, but whereas racism is a cause of discrimination, caste is a cultured excuse for it. Caste, in its American guise, has 3 elements: a morality that animates it, an identity that marks its subjects, and a status which morality consigns to subjects as their natural place in society. Over time, each of these elements broke down, and the powerful lost the extraordinary privilege that caste enabled. Ever since, the now less powerful have been pining and plotting and pontificating and prevaricating to restore their dictatorship over the human means of war. By profession, Charles Moskos was a sociologist specializing in the military. By mentality, Charles Moskos was reactionary. That is, Moskos was a reactionary in his regard for young men whom he rejected as equal citizens and as rightfully free labor. It is possible to hold unusual and even aberrant views and to still be a decent fact professional. But in the end, reactionary Charles Moskos swallowed up sociologist Charles Moskos, and he closed out his career promoting the fraud of caste. John Bergeland has been a corporate lawyer, a congressional aide, an executive branch appointee, and the CEO of an LLC. He has had different jobs, but one overall occupation: reader, writer, talker. Bergeland would assign other lesser citizens to other lesser jobs: planting trees, cleaning up a river, working in a soup kitchen. These jobs have something in common. John Bergeland has never done any of them, and it appears he never will. The purpose isn't labor, it's caste. It's a cover-up, and its size, waste, and intended permanence would beg a precedent. It's not just a policy presented under false pretenses. It's a policy whose purpose is to lie. It's a lie in policy form. Even its name lies twice grandly. A law exempting 250 million adult citizens is not universal, and unskilled, little-valued laborers are not national services. The narrative subjects of caste are the young, but caste's real targets are the believers themselves. Caste divorces them from both empathy and reason, the twin bases of a just society. Caste replaces, in their understanding, the political economy of the real world with the moral fantasy of nationalism. The affinity of authoritarianism with nationalism is well known. It's not clear if there is such a thing as authoritarianism without nationalism. Less recognized is the affinity of nationalism with bias against the young. The young are the eternal immigrants to adult society. They are its default suspects. Bigotry is not hate, though hate colors bigotry. Bigotry is contempt for fact, especially social fact or moral fact, if there is such a thing. Bigotry is not wisdom, of course, but neither is it feckless, blameless stupidity. Bigotry thinks. Bigotry adapts. Bigotry has will. War is bigotry against young men. That is not the only truth of war, but it is a truth. In service to this bigotry has assembled a civil rights movement in reverse, dedicated to public works, but not really, devoted to fellow feeling, but not really, concerned for the young, but not really. Formerly, the United States spared, if not the innocent, at least the useless, at least usually. Now that society, its better part, is psyching up to enslave millions a year, year after year, mainly to protect a lie. Sentimentality is the flip side of repression, and how. The so sanctified, so sanitized, moral equivalent of war is war.